Chat, come on now. We are live. We are present. It's going to be a quick reaction, but you saw the thumbnail and you see the title. We are going to expose the sludge corporations. We're going to... Brother, can I, like... Is it actually not live? Bro, what happened? What in the world happened here? That's a little bit weird, bro. That's a little bit weird, bro. Why isn't this working? Why isn't this working, man? Bruh, I don't want this thumbnail. Change thumbnail. Can I change the thumbnail, man? Can I change the thumbnail, man? Please, fam. There we go. There we go. There we go. Can I change the thumbnail? Brapow, 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 bow, bada bada bada. Alrighty, I think we're good now. I think we're good now. It's down, it's down. Alright, so let's get right into it. This man just released a video. Steven Adalman, I think that's how you say it. Adalman Inspires. Brother, love your content. So, this is something I've had on my heart for many years. And this man, he made the way. So I want to join the anti-sludge movement. Come on now.
To announce that I have officially launched the anti-sludge movement. In this movement, I will be devoting my life mission towards waking up the world to the horrors of sludge consumption, also known as ultra-processed foods, and getting people to start consuming real food again. For those who are not aware, nearly all ultra-processed food...
Can we get a amen, hallelujah, for that? Thank you, God.
Corporations actively work with food scientists whose main role is to engineer the food in a way that makes it extremely addicting to the human brain. They use tons of tactics so this sludge can bypass your body's natural fullness signaling, leading to overconsumption of their product so they can increase profits. This isn't a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, can I just mention one thing that I would add if I made a video like this? Look at what Jesus says, because I believe all of this is spiritual, but I love the way he's taken it. Yeah, it's good. Keep it going. So, sorry. Jesus says, what is the root of all evil? It's the love of money. Like us, we see right through it. It's just common sense. If someone's trying to sell me something, if someone's spending $10 billion annually on commercials and marketing, colors and symbolism and numbers and all this stuff, trying to sell it to the kids and making it cheap and all the other dark stuff behind it. Like, these companies spend billions of dollars to just flood it into our house. You put on a TV, what commercial is it? Boom, Taco Bell, fast food, McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Popeyes, like, bro, everything. And then right after, what commercials do they show? The pharmaceutical, the drugs. They're like, hey, look, keep eating the same foods. Buy the food that makes you sick. Come give us even more money, and you're never going to get healed. And keep eating the same foods. Keep doing the cycle. Come on.
It's a job you can apply for today if you choose. Building this movement to the scale it has to get to takes resources, which is why I'll be only partnering with brands that fully align with what my movement stands for to help support its growth. I'll be going around college campuses and other busy areas, spreading the movement with a microphone. It's time to resist the sludge and stop fueling your body with poison. With chronic disease, obesity, and mental illness rising, it's never been more important than now to take control of your health, the root that controls the way you do every single thing in your life. We must all unite together against the sludge. If you want to best follow the movement, I'll be linking the official anti-sludge movement handle down below, where you'll have access to all announcements and news. Without further ado, it's officially time to break the internet and wake the world up to the truth about the sludge.
Yeah. All right. Great stuff. Come on now. Resisting the sludge. All right. So now we're going to watch this video. The disgusting science of junk food. I can't believe we're still eating this stuff. Cannot believe it. Crazy, bro.
71% of Americans are overweight.
And this is the biggest culprit.
Drive down any American road and you'll find out why pretty quickly. This isn't news either. It's been over 24 years since the CDC recognized that obesity had become an epidemic. So why hasn't anything changed? The more research I did to find out, the more I realized how intentional this all is. These companies have built a system on addiction and are doing everything in their power to keep you hooked. But it wasn't always like this. 1921, Wichita, Kansas. After 5 years of running food stands and diners, Walter Anderson and Wichita, Kansas. After 1921,
1921. Okay.
Wichita, Kansas. After 5 years of running food stands and diners, Walter Anderson and Billy Ingram launched White Castle. They had a concept to serve quick and easy food that would be consistent and reliable. Hamburgers were the perfect fit. In 1906, a book called The Jungle exposed the bad practices of the beef industry, and burgers were thought to be made of the lowest quality meats available. So White Castle knew that they had to fight against this and show exactly how clean they actually were. To do this, White Castle built out a system where every inch of the grill was optimized for bread, burgers, or whatever else they were serving. This systematic approach, paired with allowing customers to see their food getting made, showed how high quality their products were. From the very beginning, White Castle was successful, expanding outside of Wichita within the first year. Fast forward to 1927 and they added a new option where...
Why is it called White Castle? Interesting. White Castle. Interesting.
You could take out your food instead of just dining in. Despite only really being popular in the Midwest, White Castle changed the perception of beef nationally. People started to really love burgers. This takeout model helped spawn drive-in restaurants, where you didn't even need to get out of your car to get served. Drive-in burger spots were innately American experiences. After hours or maybe even days of driving the open road, you could stop in somewhere and get a meal without even getting out of your car.
19 cents for a burger?
The highway infrastructure is one essential piece
19 cents.
of American culture, and that experience of drive-in restaurants just elevated that
Wait, 19 cents. Does that even make sense? I mean, I don't really know the prices back then. I know they were way cheaper, but dang.
Experience even more. Plus, burgers were easy to eat, so they fit right in. A ton of other hamburger chains popped up over the next 20 years, but one stood out from the rest.
1921. 1921. What else happened around that time?
The McDonald brothers came up with a concept to fully automate their kitchen for the first time ever. Every piece of the production process fit like a puzzle piece. It was a perfect
I like that.
art form of
Like business-wise.
productivity. They opened up in 1948 and absolutely blew up. Ray Kroc came along and helped the McDonald brothers expand outside of just California, and fast food continued to expand nationwide.
Is there a documentary about this? There's like a movie made about this?
Competitors like KFC, A&W, Burger King, and more helped fast food to become an American staple. Think of the Golden Arches or the rotating bucket of food to become an American staple. Think of...
What is that right there, huh? What is this? Look at this. Why is there one arch? Where's the double arch? You know what an arch resembles? Do we gotta watch the video? Let's watch the video. Let us watch the video. The Ark. The Ark of fill in the blank. Dang, this is slow. Dang, this is slow. Come on now. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. All right. Here it is. This brother put in work.
Today we're reporting live in front of the biggest dump in America, and we are exposing them with no mercy. From occultic symbolism found in the McDonald's logo to a 33rd degree Freemason as their founder, all the way to children's teeth and literal human flesh in their food. We're covering it all today, folks, so stay tuned for the rest of this video. First, we're going to talk about the McDonald's logo and how it's actually a black magic sigil from a book, specifically this book of witchcraft and Satanism. You see, the legend is that McDonald's was founded by Freemasons and built on a satanic foundation, as you can see with these two former CEOs throwing up the devil horns very publicly. Not only that, but McDonald's and their logo also represents the Ark of Baal. The Ark of Baal was an ancient demonic monument in Syria that got destroyed and for some reason rebuilt in New York. And Baal is the demonic god of child sacrifice in the Bible, and his ark represents demonic portals to different dimensions. So why is the original McDonald's logo not an M, but an ark? Why in St. Louis do we have monuments glorifying Baal? And why do people always find human hair, human DNA, human body parts, human teeth in their McDonald's burgers and foods? All right? Keep in mind that Baal is the demonic god of child sacrifice. Watch this mother's testimony of what she found in her daughter's
I'm like sick to my stomach, okay? I've heard the rumors and I still am guilty of it, taking my kids to go eat at McDonald's, but
If you knew. Nah, I understand, I get you.
today, took my girls to go get their normal Happy Meals. She bit down one of her chicken nuggets and she says that, you know, she hurt her teeth. And so I'm looking at it and I pull this out. She pulls this out. She hands it to me, Kay. And I'm freaking out. Baby, where's your tooth? What happened? How'd you lose a tooth? How did you lose a tooth in your chicken nuggets? It's not her tooth, y'all. This is not my baby's tooth. But this is a baby's tooth. This was someone's baby's tooth.
McDonald's serves 68 to 69 million people in a single day.
In a single day, bro?
When's the last time you drove by a
1% of the global population.
cattle ranch and saw more than 1,000 cows? There's not enough
Bro, that's like 100 or 200,000 cows have to be slaughtered every single day for that to happen.
beef in the entire world to serve the volume of people that
Yeah, there's just not enough. There is just not enough cows to do that. Bro, what are we actually eating?
they do. So it really makes you wonder what they mean by billions and billions served.
No. Bruh, see, this is all demonic, spiritual. Bruh. Alright, let's keep going.
The golden arches, or the rotating bucket of chicken that you'd see on the side of the road. These became a sight in all sorts of American cities, and that's when you knew that fast food was the real deal. In 1970, Wendy's took a spin on the drive-in model, adding a window instead and allowing you to drive through instead of drive in. Every fast food chain loved this, and they took that model basically right away. And other fast food options like Chinese takeout and pizza also started to grow across the United States. But there was just one small problem.
That's a lot of food, man. See, now's the time of the meal when you start getting the McStomach ache.
Since the 1980s, fast food has gotten increasingly more unhealthy. As the fast food industry grew, fast food...
Let's take a look at this. Fast food was healthier in the 1980s. Look at the calorie count and size of portions at 10 US fast food chains. So, in 1986, it was 162 grams. That was... Wait, these are the calories. Okay, that was the calories. In 1991, it went up to 169 or 341 calories. 2016 is at 416, almost 100 more calories. The sides also went up. The desserts especially went up.
Has gotten increasingly more unhealthy. As the fast food industry grew, companies had to get more and more products out to their franchise restaurants, meaning more preservatives and lower quality ingredients became the norm. Add to that fast food companies started...
Another video. Can we watch this video real quick? Let's see. If they can load. Okay, it was McDonald's Rabbi in
Yes, this honey trick prevents memory loss, but if you already have dementia, Alzheimer's, or mental...
Today we're reporting live in front of the biggest in New York.
No doubt about it. But the beach. Are you there with me tonight? Your own people. There's been no in the world to make. Got the white goyim fighting the. They do all the work. Mine is why should we pay? Make an appointment with them and hold the foggy rabbi groups. Who's to say that that's wrong? Well, let me ask the food labels. There's a to he knows that.
Drinking warm water with cinnamon before bed eliminates this parasite from the pancreas and resets blood sugar levels and reverses
This planet, you Rabbi Finkelstein and yours truly, James Wickstrom. You know, we are on two totally opposite sides of this planet. And both of us have two totally different wants and needs and desires against one another. And yet, here we are, sitting here tonight live on the Turner Radio Network, discoursing about people, discoursing about things, being honest and truthful, and in telling the truth to the masses. But you know, the masses have a hard time believing anything. Well, we've done a great brainwashing job on them over the centuries, and especially the last few hundred years. We've just brainwashed them completely. They believe anything we tell them. And, in the meantime, we have a lot of fun around Passover where we steal the children. And, I know you know because I've heard it on your show before. I mean, we steal 100 to 300,000 children a year just here in this country, and we drain the blood and we mix it with a Passover bread, and then we throw the bodies into the slaughterhouses that we own, and we grind up all the bodies in the sausage and the hamburger. McDonald's is one of our favorite outlets, and the people, they eat it for breakfast, they eat their children for lunch, and you know, as Jews, you know, we gotta do what we do. The most important thing to remember between you, Pastor Wickstrom, and me, Rabbi Hagee Finkelstein of New York, that we both have two fathers, and so that's why we look at the world in two different ways.
And we know that there's a massive collision that's going to take place between two forces, don't we?
To go public on the stock market, and profits became priority number one. Cheaper ingredients and cheaper production became the biggest focus for shareholders. But that's where the problem lies. So the question I want to answer right now is, how bad is junk food really? So I figured the best way to go about this was to compare 5 of the most popular fast food items, and then also I want to talk a bit about why these are so addictive, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's start with A&W. Their most popular item is the Teen Burger, which has a total of 920 calories. Next, Subway, I put in my order a 6-inch chicken teriyaki sub, and that came to a total of 956 calories. The iconic Big Mac comes to a total of 1,120 calories. And then lastly, we have Burger King and the Whopper at 1,430 and the Baconator from Wendy's at 1,630 calories. Now, I should say these are all meals. I wanted to keep the metrics relatively similar, so it includes fries and a soft drink. Just looking at these numbers, you can see just how damaging these foods actually are. Keep in mind, with the average activity levels of an American male, you're supposed to only get 2,500 calories a day. 1,630 is way too much for one meal. But calories are a somewhat mystical metric, and most people don't even know what it is. A calorie is a measure of potential energy that you consume in the food that you eat. So the amount of energy you get is going to be the same if it's 800 calories of fruit or 800 calories of McDonald's. However, that doesn't really mean much. The quality of the nutrients you're putting in your body has a much larger impact than calories. So if you eat salmon and veggies, for example, you're going to get 800 calories of high quality nutrients, meaning you'll feel nourished and energetic. However, if you eat double the amount of calories from a fast food restaurant, your body's going to be craving the good nutrients it needs to thrive, so you're going to be hungry within an hour or two, meaning you'll eat more, and thus begins that dangerous cycle. What fast food does contain is fat, sodium, and sugar, which are excellent at releasing dopamine in our brains, which makes us feel very happy. Should also say that a lot of drug addicts seek out dopamine in the drugs that they can be happy. Sugar, which are excellent at releasing dopamine in our brains, which makes us feel sodium and sugar, which are excellent at what fast food does contain is fat, sodium, and sugar. Which are excellent at releasing dopamine in our brains, which makes us feel very happy. Should also say that a lot of drug addicts seek out dopamine in the drugs that they consume. You're starting to see where this is very problematic now? We feel hungry and we remember how good fast food made us feel, so what do? You seek out fast food again. Now, this isn't an accident. This is a scientific calculation that fast food companies put together to keep you hooked. But how do they get you in the first place? The key to good marketing for fast food companies is reducing barriers for customers. Fast food companies spend a ton of money every year on research and development to make the customer experience as smooth as possible. Their goal with this research is to find pain points in their process which cause customers to reconsider their decisions. Starting with TV and social media ads. You see an ad for the new flame grilled, ultra charred, double bacon, triple cheese, mega Big Mac, and you get a little bit interested. You probably won't get it now, but it's in the back of your triple cheese mega Big Mac, and you get a little bit interested. You probably won't get it now, but it's in the back of your head and you'll probably remember it a bit later. Fast forward to a few days later and you're driving down the street. You see the golden arches and the big red sign. That triggers a happy memory in your brain from the last time you tried to eat McDonald's. And then you start to wonder, that burger I saw a few days ago, what does the ultra char feel like? How does triple cheese taste? And you need to know. So you pull into the parking lot and there's no barriers to your entry process. The drive-thru takes away the barrier of getting out of your car. The small menu removes the barrier of having too many options and feeling overwhelmed. You know what you want, and you can get it. The whole way along that process, anything that makes you feel confused or frustrated, it's gone. Don't even worry about it. But the other side of that is, it's a deeply American trait to want to have freedom to pick whatever you want. So why don't you let people customize it at a kiosk inside, or customize their burger however they want? Chances are they're not. Life lifelong customers, people who will always keep coming back, that's another important piece of the puzzle. So why don't you hand out toys with your kids' meals to give people a positive memory with your restaurant from the very beginning? And why don't you create a loyalty app that gives you free rewards for just coming back all the time? And even with that, I had no idea that in 1999, the CDC declared that there was an obesity epidemic brewing. That's 24 years ago. Study after study shows that junk food is causing people to get heart disease and other health complications. Super Size Me showed us exactly how bad this food is for you. I watched that in high school and elementary school. Those are cold, hard facts that your marketing can't really beat. What if you don't need to beat it? What if there's no other option?
I'm having like McPTSD.
1 in 6 Americans live in what is called a food desert. Food deserts are areas where you have to go out of your way to get access to good, high-quality food. Food deserts are one half of what's called food insecurity, the other half being affordability. In an urban area, if you don't have a grocery store within 1 mile of your home, you're considered to be in a food desert. Now, maybe 1 mile away you have a Whole Foods. Great. right? Well, back in 2015, the New York City Consumer Affairs Department investigated Whole Foods for price gouging, and it was found that they charge 10 to 20% more than other grocery stores for comparable products. Price gouging, distance, and a lack of options make food insecurity a big problem in the United States. Options like McDonald's cost less than good organic food options, and the longest distance between McDonald's restaurants in the United States of America is 120 miles. That's like an hour and 45 minutes of driving. The problem isn't in marketing and health, it's in accessibility and cost. Now people are hooked on fast food and health problems are starting to rise. Where do you go from here? Well, the states of America are hooked on fast food and sets New Year to rise. Where do you go from here? Well, every single year, half of the US sets New Year's resolutions based on fitness and weight loss, and 45 million people every year decide to take action with a dieting program. Companies like Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers were born out of the growing obesity crisis, but the goal behind these programs is often dangerous and rarely works. To make things worse, in the last decade or so, diet culture has shifted away from physical appearance traits to focus more on leading a healthy lifestyle. But weight loss programs put 100% of the focus on diet and nearly none on activity. There's little accountability and personalization in these programs, which makes it almost impossible to succeed. Not to mention that the foods are often very bland and boring, especially for dopamine addicted junk food lovers, which makes it really hard to stick. You're going to want to break. I don't think this is an accident. These foods are designed to be boring. These foods are designed to make you fail. You might be wondering, why would they construct a system that doesn't work? Wouldn't that make people not want to buy it? Touché. However, if you have people succeeding, does that not mean you lose the customers anyways? So who owns these dieting companies? I was wondering, and I was pretty mind blown at what I found. Jenny Craig was purchased by Nestle, the same Nestle that sells ice cream and other junk food. They own the dieting company. Now, Nestle is also a massive company, so it's not super surprising, but when I saw that, I burst out laughing. When I say that, it's probably not surprising to you that 95% of the people who enroll in these weight loss programs gain back all the weight that they intended to lose within the first 2 years. I've constructed this whole thing where it seems like you're in a system you can't break out of, but I promise you it's not impossible, and you can break out of it today. And it doesn't require you being perfect either. I was always taught that inactivity was pretty normal in North American culture, so I never really cared to work out. And I was also blessed with high metabolism, so I ate like junk and it never made a difference. Eating too much of one source of food, especially low value carbs like fast food, means you'll be lacking in certain nutrients that are important for us to thrive. So having a balance between good protein sources like meats, beans, or even meat alternatives like tofu is very good for you. And of course, physical activity is also pretty important. So yeah, the system is designed to fail, but it's possible to break free. And I know that if you're watching this and feeling maybe a little bit discouraged or maybe a little nervous, It's possible. You can do it. Anyways, if you enjoyed that video, I really enjoyed going in depth and learning about this, so I would appreciate it if you could subscribe, because I have a ton more just like this coming out soon. And if you did enjoy this video, check out this one I made right here about how verification is broken on social media.
Obesity.
For the first time in 10 years, the numbers are going down.
1 in 8 American adults is now on a weight loss drug, as restaurants are launching Ozempic menus with half-size portions. But the food industry has spent over a century engineering food you can't stop eating, and they're not about to let that go. Now, food you can't stop eating, and they're not about to let that go. Now, they're using AI to do it faster, and they're not about to let that go. Now, they're using AI to do it faster. Algorithms designing the exact flavor profile your brain is least able to resist. 70% of the American food supply is now ultra-processed. These are taking over the supermarkets, often using protein labels and healthy-looking packaging as a Trojan horse, all the while meticulously engineering their products to be as addictive as possible. We now have protein Doritos, but my biggest weakness will always be the Pringle. If they're in the house, I'd inhale the whole tub, only to sit there feeling guilty, despite barely feeling like I'd eaten. Which is strange, because the plain potato is one of the most filling foods on earth. In studies measuring satiety per calorie, the boiled potato wins by a landslide. Nothing else comes close. So how did one of the most filling foods on earth become one of the easiest to overconsume? If you struggle to stop eating ultra-processed food, regardless of whether it claims to be healthy, this is a big reason why. With the rising protein trend and increasing advances in food engineering, why? Stop eating ultra-processed food, regardless of whether it claims to be healthy. This is a big reason why. With the rising protein trend and increasing advances in food engineering, this story is more important than ever. But to explain it, we need to go back to two famous brothers who couldn't agree on a single question. Should food be pleasurable? Who couldn't agree on a single question. Should food be pleasurable? In the 1890s, Dr. John Harvey Kellogg ran a health resort in Michigan. He believed bland 90s. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg ran a health resort in Michigan. He believed bland food preserved moral purity. Too much flavor overstimulated the nervous system, so he invented cornflakes, which were intentionally tasteless. But his brother Will watched the patients suffer through them and saw something that John couldn't. People actually needed to want to eat them, so the menace added sugar. John was horrified. The brothers fell out for decades, but it was Will's version that won. He launched the Kellogg's Company in 1906, and sugar-sweetened cornflakes became one of the best-selling breakfast foods in America. For the next few decades, companies competed for who could make the tastiest, most convenient, and most affordable foods. Nobody chose Spam because it tasted better than fresh meat. I mean, look at it. They chose it because it lasted years and made a great ration. However, by the 1950s, food wasn't scarce anymore. There were a lot more options, so the challenge shifted from making food available to making it irresistible. And there was no better snack than the potato chip. Their invention was almost an accident. In 1853, a frustrated chef named George Crumb was handed back a plate of fried potatoes for being too thick and too soggy. Sarcastically, he sliced the potatoes as thin as he possibly could, fried them until they shattered, and doused them in salt. The customers loved them. For decades, chips were fragile luxuries, until Herman Lay figured out the packaging. Suddenly, they could travel, which was perfect timing. As families got busier and supermarkets replaced corner stores, convenience shifted from a novelty to somewhat of a necessity. In 1961, Lay's company merged with Frito to become Frito-Lays, and suddenly, there were chips in every aisle of every store in the country. Around the same time, a Mexican restaurant in Disneyland started cutting up leftover tortillas, frying them, and selling them as a snack. They called them Doritos. From the Spanish, Doradito, meaning little golden things. Procter & Gamble, watching all of this, hired a chemist to build a superior chip from scratch. He pressed reconstituted potato dough into a perfect saddle shape that stacked without breaking. They called them newfangled potato chips, until they realized that sounded kinda dumb, so they dropped that and left them as Pringles. But there are a lot of chips competing with each other in supermarkets, and every company was seeking an edge. So they stopped hiring chefs and started hiring psychologists and scientists. People who understood what tasted good, but also why humans couldn't stop, and what they found would change everything. Your body runs on ancient hunger software. When energy drops, your hunger hormones rise. When you've had enough, fullness hormones rise, and you stop eating. That system evolved over millions of years, and for most of human history, it worked. Because whole foods typically contain fiber, water, and have a structure that requires chewing and digestion. So by the time you've eaten enough calories from a boiled potato, your body already knows it. But what if you could deliver those calories before these signals had time to fire? That was the question Howard Moskowitz set out to answer. Moskowitz was a Harvard-trained taste researcher, and in his own words,
I started having meetings with product developers, and they told me, if you could do this with a bunch of different ingredients simultaneously, maybe there's a bliss point that's really loved. Well, I did it, and by golly, there was.
The bliss point is a precise combination of ingredients that makes foods irresistible. It has 3 key pillars. Salt came first. It improves taste while suppressing bitterness and amplifying flavor, while also covering up chemical aftertastes. Fat was the second. It carries flavor while creating a rich mouthfeel. But more importantly, fat makes flavor linger. Each bite feels slightly more rewarding than the last. It pulls you forward. Sugar completed the triangle. In chips, this comes mostly from the starch in the potato, which converts rapidly to glucose. Get all 3 ratios right simultaneously, and you get what researchers call hyperpalatable food. Combinations of salt, fat, and sugar that almost never occur together in nature. But food scientists also discovered a sneakier trick: vanishing calorie density. Take a Cheeto. It starts as cornstarch slurry, processed into a paste and puffed with air. It requires barely any chewing. It dissolves before your stomach even registers it, which makes it incredibly difficult to just eat one. This is also partially why some fast food restaurants inject their chicken with marinade through hundreds of needles. It makes it much quicker to break down and digest. As a food researcher pointed out, it's essentially been pre-chewed. One restaurant designer likened these products to adult baby food. Even sound is engineered. The specific pop of a Pringles can was carefully designed to signal freshness and create a ritualistic moment that primes you to start eating before the lid is fully off. This is all in service of the same goal: make it the most craveable foods possible. And looking at the steady rise in calories the average American consumes, it worked. But researchers started linking ultra-processed foods to something they call conditioned hypereating, a learned drive to keep consuming highly rewarding food well beyond your actual energy needs. And when the CEOs mean highly rewarding food, well beyond your actual energy needs. And when the CEOs of the world's largest food companies caught wind of this, they all gathered privately to have a meeting to discuss. We only know what happened because an investigative journalist named Michael Moss tracked down the people who were in the room. But before we get to what happened, it's much harder to avoid over-consuming calories today than it was 50 years ago. When I was eating intuitively, I'll just intuitively get fat. So I started tracking, and I used MacroFactor, the sponsor of today's episode, and then one of the CEOs stood up and gave a presentation on the rising obesity rates. Ultra-processed food was everywhere, and their products were part of the problem, especially for children. But if they voluntarily made their products less craveable, their competitors wouldn't. They'd lose market share, and the obesity numbers wouldn't budge. So nothing really changed. When companies did try to shift, the market punished them. In the 80s, Cheez-It released a low-salt version, but consumers who were already used to the original flavor barely brought it, and the product was taken off the shelves. In 2010, PepsiCo's CEO tried to reposition the company around healthier products, but Wall Street pushed back as the stock dropped. When companies have made their products less rewarding, they've often been punished by the market. This is why inside these companies, executives talk about share of the stomach and frequency of use, describing their ideal customers as heavy users. While nutrition barely enters the conversation, Coca-Cola's internal materials identified water as its primary competitor. Gatorade mentioned something similar. Public statements matter less than purchasing data because companies don't optimize for what people say they want, they optimize for what people buy. Around 70% of the US food supply is considered ultra-processed. Today, over 70% of American adults are overweight or obese. The children they were warned about in that meeting are now the adults with diet-related disease. The same tricks get applied to products which are marketed as healthy. The 90s low-fat craze is the clearest example. Companies like Snackwells pulled out the fat and replaced it with sugar, but people just ate more because it felt healthy, only to end up fatter, also known as the Snackwell effect. This is more or less what I used to do with protein bars. And as a result of the surge in ultra-processed foods, we now have food swamps. Neighborhoods where fast food chains and dollar stores, stocked up with ultra-processed products, vastly outnumber fresh produce. And food deserts where there just aren't as much affordable fresh foods. So are we just all doomed to the consequences of our ultra-processed environment? Not exactly. Banning ultra-processed food isn't realistic. These products were invented for reasons. For soldiers in trenches, for families without the time or money to cook from scratch. They solve genuine problems. Pasteurization stops people dying violently from tuberculosis, and fortifying food with vitamins helps prevent deficiencies. Which is why, as great as it can be, companies going back to minimal ingredients is not necessarily better. Processing itself isn't the enemy. The problem is hyper-optimization for craveability over satiety. That gap between processed and engineered to bypass your hunger signals is where the damage happens. You don't have to jump from drive-thrus to eating the type of food a lizard gets on his birthday because a shirtless influencer told you to, or shouted at the baked goods in the supermarket.
Look at the ingredients. Wake the fuck up.
I've always loved food, so what helped me was understanding these systems and incentives shaping health, which is why I started this channel, so subscribe for more of that. But more practically, this is what the evidence suggests is the most effective way to get and stay in better shape. Redesign your environment, not your willpower. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. You want to make the hyperpalatable stuff slightly harder to reach. And
oh, there's so much going on with this.
In February, the CEO of McDonald's posted a video of himself eating a cat. Well, no, eating a burger. That shouldn't be news. That should be the most boring sentence that I've ever said. But Chris Kempinski, the man who runs the largest food chain on Earth, took a bite of his own big arch burger, so small, so carefully, so visibly reluctantly that the internet collectively decided this man doesn't eat McDonald's. The bite was measured at roughly 2% of the burger. He called it the product.
It's a delicious product.
Not food, not a burger, a product. He promised he'd eat the rest off camera. All right, sure thing, buddy. It's basically the corporate equivalent of saying, yeah, I'll definitely read your email. An Irish comedian stitched the video on TikTok and it racked up 10 million views, and suddenly every fast food rival in America was posting videos of themselves actually eating their own burgers like, you know, normal human beings.
All right, Burger King has a beef with McDonald's. It all started with this viral video we told you about yesterday. The CEO of McDonald's trying its new Big Arch Burger. Do we have that? Let's see it.
Burger King's president demolished a Whopper on camera. Wendy's created a $100,000 chief tasting officer role just to make a point.
Popular fast food chain wants to pay you 6 figures just to eat.
Now, Kempczynski wasn't fired. That bit went viral too, but it's just not true. He's still CEO. McDonald's stock actually hit a record high during this whole thing. So there's actually no scandal here. Not really. Oh, except the internet's instinct was absolutely right, because when you start looking at who actually eats, drinks, smokes, scrolls through and gambles on the things that they sell, and then you look at who's supposed to be protecting you from the worst of it, okay, that is where it starts getting properly dark. And by the end of this, we're going to get to a pharmaceutical company that didn't just avoid their own product, they planned to sell you the addiction and the cure at the same time to the same people. Hey, I'm Andy, this is The Fine Print, and I've been going through corporate lawsuits, leaked recordings, and congressional testimonies, so you don't have to. What I found was, well, let's just say a lot of very powerful people are deeply committed to not consuming their own output.
Two guys who are sponsored by Monster pouring bottled water into the Monster energy drink cans to then drink on TV. I guess, you know, they got to keep their sponsors happy.
So let's start with someone who said the quiet part out loud and got fired for it. In late 2025, a lawsuit landed against Campbell's, yeah, the soup people, that included audio recordings of one of their senior executives, a VP called Martin Bally. Bally allegedly said he doesn't buy Campbell's products, that the food is, and I'm paraphrasing from the court filings here, highly processed and for poor people. Confirmed they believed it was his voice, issued an apology, called the claims about their ingredients patently absurd, and then announced that Bally was no longer employed as of 5 days later. So just to be clear, they rejected what he said about the product, and then fired the person who said it. Both things simultaneously. I'm going to let that contradiction speak for itself here. But Campbell's aren't the first company to have had this problem. No, not by a long shot. Because the original boss admits the product is rubbish disaster happened right here in Britain, and it's so famous it entered the language.
And thank you, Mr. President, for asking me to address such a prestigious audience.
In 1991, Gerald Ratner, CEO of the UK's largest jewellery chain, stood up at an Institute of Directors dinner and explained how his company could sell a sherry decanter for under £5.
Sherry decanter, it's cut glass, and it comes complete with 6 glasses, and it's really only cost £4.95. People say to me, how can you sell this for such a low price? I say because it's total crap.
Total crap? He then compared a set of earrings to a prawn sandwich on the basis that the sandwich would probably last longer.
I know you might say it's not in the best possible taste, but we sold £250,000 of them last year.
£500 million wiped off the share price. The phrase doing a Ratner is still used in business schools 35 years later. One sentence and $500 million gone. Turns out customers don't love being told that the product is junk by the man who sold it to them. And that's just the appetizer, because we're about to get into what happens when the pattern shows up in industries where the stakes aren't jewelry, they're your health, your children's attention spans, and in one case, hundreds of thousands of lives. What the journalist Michael Moss uncovered is that in the food industry, the quiet part is just, well, how things work. Permanently, behind closed doors. Moss won a Pulitzer Prize for his investigation into the processed food industry, and the things that shocked him most wasn't the sugar content or the marketing tactics, it was simply how many executives he met that simply did not eat their own food. He visited the home of Robert Lynn, the former chief scientist at Frito-Lay, so the man who spent his career perfecting crisps. Lynn served him plain oatmeal and raw asparagus for lunch. Not a single processed food product anywhere in the house. The chief scientist at Frito-Lay avoided crisps, as Moss put it, like the plague. But wait, it gets better. Howard Moskowitz, the man who literally invented the concept of the bliss point, the optimal level of sugar that makes food irresistible, was offered a fizzy drink during an interview. He refused. Said he doesn't drink the stuff. It's not good for your teeth, you see. The man who engineered how addictive these drinks taste won't put them in his mouth. I genuinely don't know how you spin that one. At PepsiCo, CEO Indra Nooyi once admitted that she was the only person on the entire executive floor who actually drank full sugar Pepsi. Every other senior executive at Pepsi didn't drink Pepsi. Even Colonel Sanders, the actual founder of KFC, turned on his own restaurant chain after selling it, calling the food goddamn slop, and the gravy pure wallpaper paste. KFC sued him for libel. The founder of KFC sued by KFC for saying KFC was bad, right? Now, none of this is secret. Michael Moss published his book in 2013. It won a Pulitzer. Everyone read it, and the UK government's response to the processed food crisis has been voluntary reformulation targets that obviously the industry mostly ignores. The NHS spent roughly £6.5 billion a year treating obesity-related conditions. That's about 170 quid per taxpayer per year. Just subsidising the health consequences of products that the people who make won't eat. The government's approach to food labelling is essentially asking corporations to please be honest about what's in the box, which, given everything we've just heard, is a bit like asking the fox to audit the hen house and also write the safety report. Speaking of corporations and the content that they surround you with, if you're tired of watching stuff that is wedged in between adverts, mostly from the same companies we're complaining about here, MeTV is an ad-free streaming platform. There's no algorithms deciding what you watch, no corporate sponsors, just a 14-day free trial that the cat is apparently off to check out already, and then it's like $4.99 a month after that. All my content's there, and there is a link in the description. Now, everything we've covered so far is embarrassing. It's just funny. CEOs who won't eat their own food, scientists who avoid their own crisps, a man who got sued by the chicken restaurant he invented. All jolly good stuff. But there is a version of this that stops being funny, because some of the people who won't touch their own products aren't avoiding it because it tastes bad or it's bad for their teeth. They're avoiding it because they know exactly what it does to people. And the people whose job it is to stop them, they know too.
And we call it the iPad.
In 2010, Steve Jobs launched the iPad, called it extraordinary, the best browsing experience ever made. So your kids must love it. Jobs said they hadn't used it, that he limited how much technology his kids were exposed to at home. Every evening, the Jobs family sat around the kitchen table discussing books and history. Nobody ever pulled out a screen. Bill Gates didn't give his children a phone until they were 14. Tim Cook won't let his nephew use social media. Evan Williams, co-founder of Twitter, gave his kids hundreds of physical books instead of iPads. At a certain point, this stops looking like personal preference and starts looking like insider knowledge. Then came the confessions. In 2017, Chamath Palihapitiya, Facebook's former vice president of user growth, the man whose job it was to get as many people as possible hooked on the platform, gave a talk at Stanford, where he said he felt tremendous guilt that the dopamine-driven feedback loops that they'd built were, his words, destroying how society works. His solution? He doesn't use social media anymore, hasn't for years, and his children aren't allowed to touch it. Weeks later, Sean Parker, Facebook's founding president, said publicly that the platform was designed to exploit a vulnerability in human psychology, that the inventors understood this consciously and did it anyway. He called himself a conscientious objector to social media. The people who built the attention economy won't live in it, and it's because of a class divide. There's a school in Silicon Valley called the Waldorf School of the Peninsula. $25,000 a year, completely screen-free through age 13. The parent body reads like a tech industry directory: Google, Apple, eBay, Yahoo. These executives sell screens to your children and then send their own children to a school that bans them. And then there's TikTok. ByteDance runs 2 versions of the app, one for China and one for everyone else. The Chinese version, Douyin, has a mandatory 40-minute daily limit for under 14s, restricts access hours and pushes educational content. The international version? No default limit. Easily bypass restrictions. As one researcher puts it, they give their own kids the spinach version and then ship the opium version to the rest of us. The UK's Online Safety Act took years to pass, got watered down repeatedly, and still doesn't meaningfully address algorithmic addiction. No Western government has mandated the same protections that ByteDance already applies domestically. The tech companies know these products are harmful enough to restrict for their own families, and the regulators let them sell the unrestricted version to yours. In April 1994, 7 tobacco CEOs testified under oath before the United States Congress that they did not believe nicotine was addictive. 7 of them, under oath. Meanwhile, internal company documents dragged into public view through litigation had said since 1963, we are in the business of selling nicotine, an addictive drug. 30 years of knowing. 7 men lying to Congress, and every single one of them, when asked, acknowledged they'd prefer their own children didn't smoke. The system works exactly as designed. The vaping industry managed to produce its own version of this in record time. In 2019, Juul's CEO, Kevin Burns, went on national television in America and said, and this is a real quote from the CEO of the country's biggest e-cigarette company, "Don't vape, don't use Juul." He stepped down weeks later. The UK government is only now getting around to properly restricting disposable vapes. When the CEO of the product is begging you not to buy it faster than the government is moving to restrict it, something has gone properly wrong. Sheldon Adelson built a $35 billion fortune from casinos. His own personal gambling? $500 total on holiday on an island. He actively lobbied to ban online gambling, saying he opposed exploiting the world's most vulnerable people. Stephen Wynn asked if he'd ever known a gambler who wins and walks away, and he simply said, never. And then added, the only way to win in a casino is to own one. A DraftKings co-founder admitted he'd never set foot in a casino before building one of America's biggest online betting platforms. And when a reporter asked a slot machine designer whether he plays the machines he builds, the designer apparently recoiled like he'd been insulted. Slots are for losers. That's the designer of the slot machine calling his own customers losers. In the UK, 60% of the gambling industry's profits come from just 5% of customers, people who are either problem gamblers or at serious risk of becoming one. There are over 400 gambling-related suicides every year in this country, and until recently, the industry was essentially allowed to regulate itself. The Gambling Commission let operators write their own rules, and the government collected the tax revenue and looked the other way. The people who built the machines won't play them. The people who own the casinos won't gamble. But for 20 years, the government decided they were the right people to write the rules about who should. Right, I promised you something at the start of this. A company that didn't just distance themselves from the damage that the product caused, but they monetized it. Purdue Pharma made OxyContin. Their own internal data showed it was twice as potent as morphine. They marketed it as less addictive than competitors. When reports started coming in that people were getting hooked, their response wasn't to pull the drug or reformulate, it was to blame the patients. Internal emails from Richard Sackler, the family member running the operation, referred to the people suffering from addiction as the scum of the earth and reckless criminals. In 2001, a federal prosecutor reported 59 OxyContin-related deaths in a single state. Sackler's emailed response, as reported from court filings, "This is not too bad, could have been far worse." 59 people? Not too bad. I've read a lot of documents for this channel. I've seen a lot of things that are hard to frame with a joke, but not too bad. About 59 people might be the one that genuinely broke me. Then came Project Tango. This is the payoff I promised you. Internal documents revealed that the Sackler family explored acquiring Narcan, the drug that reverses opioid overdoses, and selling Suboxone, a medication used to treat opioid addiction, as complementary products to OxyContin. An internal presentation noted a 40 to 60% relapse rate within 1 year, which, if you're thinking about it from a profit perspective, and I mean they clearly were, means repeat customers, right? Sell the drug that hooks them, sell the drug that treats the addiction, sell the drug that saves them when they inevitably screw up and overdose on the first one. 3 revenue streams from the same human being suffering. That was the business model. That was Project Tango. The Sackler family extracted $4 billion in personal profit between 2007 and 2018. Over 450,000 Americans have died from opioid overdoses. And the regulatory agencies whose job
who first came up with the idea. In fact, there are reports of German immigrants selling them in pushcarts in New York's Bowery as far back as the 1860s. A century and a half later, hot dogs are still the #1 treat on the street. Each individual hot dog is made from a mix of pork, beef, and 2,040 chickens. The cuts of meat they start with are called trimmings and come from animals that are too sick to be housed in typical meat production plants. The trimmings are pushed through grated metal plates, simultaneously grinding the meat and producing strings for high-quality mops. Other regurgitated foods are collected and added to the ground meat, followed by food starch, salt, and mustard scooped up from the factory floor. Ground up pieces of Mars rock are also added to the mixture to give the hot dogs a flavor that's out of this world. Water is added to the mix, which is then rolled to prevent it from hardening into concrete. Then, corn syrup is also added, because all food products in America are legally required to be at least 10% sugar. The addition of yet even more water helps dilute the product into a flavorless paste, which is regrettably pureed into a fine emulsion. Long rolls of plastic wrap are loaded into the stuffing machine. It pumps the meat in, twisting it every 5 1/4 inches, which is exactly what Paula here wishes her husband would do more of in the bedroom. It takes just 35 seconds to make a chain of a whopping 10 hot dogs. Then these hot dog chains are linked together and loaded into another machine, ordering them by color. The hot dogs are drenched in pig sweat to enhance their flavor, and then they're taken into an oven with several cooking zones. Hot out of the oven, the hot dogs are drenched in chilled pig sweat, this time to cool them down for packaging. The black stripes on the hot dogs disappear for no reason, and a small child in disguise as a factory worker plays with his food. The hot dogs are positioned for packaging, and no matter how humanely or efficiently this process is done, vegans will still complain about it.